California, America's playground and land of opportunity. It's not called the Golden State for nothing. Kissed by sea, sand, surf and surrealism, it is a true dichotomy. California's reputation for epitomizing personal freedom is world-renowned. My quest is to find out whether Highway 1 is one of the world's greatest motorcycle rides, winding its way some 650 miles from just north of San Francisco. Highway 1 hugs the coast, taking in some of the most infamous cities and coastal wonders in the Americas, to Journey's End, where this historic ribbon of road gives way to the modernity of Interstate 5 near the family-friendly seaside resort of Laguna Beach in the south. For me, the little industrial town of Santa Rosa, some 50 miles north of San Francisco, is the start of my journey to pick up my steed. But if you're going to ride Highway 1 and ride the American dream, the only bike that you would do it on surely would have been a Harley Davidson, but now all that's changed. Over the last 10 years, a revolution in custom motorcycles has made Harley-Davidson's monopoly on riding the all-American bike a distant memory. Thanks to little companies with big ideas, producing chops with ridiculously raised styling and fabulously fat rear tyres, you can walk into a chop shop like this and buy a slice of radically customised American iron off the shelf anytime you fancy. Now, out of all these new breeds of motorcycle that are on offer, I've surfed the web for months trying to find the one that's right for me, but obviously having never seen them because they're not really in England. Now, I've chosen a Saxon Firestorm. Now, I've never seen it, I've just added to basket, so I'm sort of nervous and also very excited. Oh my god. Oh my god. Preston, this is amazing. So is this, I mean, Saxon produced 3 or 4 different models. I mean, obviously this is the low kind of Pro Street look.
Yes.
And my God, it is low. Can I sit on it?
Definitely.
Now, oh mate, that is fantastic. Do you know, I just thought from the website, I thought that I'd be kind of riding something that's sort of like a wheelbarrow, but it fits me like a glove. And it's got a soft tail suspension.
Yes, it does.
So that's going to help a lot, because otherwise if I had a rigid suspension, I could be sort of riding a pneumatic drill really, couldn't I?
Yes.
Yeah. Now look, you can go and buy a bike if you want over here and ride it down Highway 1, but there are other ways of getting yourself a motorcycle holiday. Now, there are a whole load of companies around here, sort of San Francisco area, that will hire you a bike to do Highway 1. It's going to cost you probably around $2,500 for about 2-week trip. As I get up to cruising altitude, heading for the bright lights of San Francisco, about 50 miles down the one, I'm immediately wooed by this ridiculous motorcycle. Unbelievably, it's as comfortable as a Harley Softail Springer and as ludicrous as Liberace's dress sense. With over 1600 cc's of power at my disposal and a whole load of Pro Street custom attitude, I feel that I'm riding what California is all about, an overt statement of freedom loved by some and hated by others. And as I cross Golden Gate Bridge, I'm in utter heaven. To understand the ethos of what California and Highway 1 is all about, you have to spend some time in San Francisco. Often shrouded in its famous sea mist, this vibrant and eclectic city has been the beacon of hope for freedom since the 50s. A freedom to live life as you want to that is fervently upheld by Californians all the way down Highway 1 to this day. And it all started with a hodgepodge band of now iconic writers and poets such as Jack Kerouac, William Burroughs and Allen Ginsberg, who converged on this tiny bookstore in the late 50s to peddle the then subversive ideologies we take for granted today, a simple yet revolutionary idea called free speech. The City Light bookstore was undeniably the birthplace of the Beat generation. The beatnik writers were considered radical and a threat to state security, so when Ginsberg's poem Howl was published by the bookstore in 1956, the owner Lawrence Ferlinghetti was tried for literary obscenity, but Ferlinghetti won the case and the victory was to herald the new dawn for America's disenchanted. Do you know what, it is amazing to think that without this little bookshop and without this poem by Ginsberg, how the freedom that we all love and enjoy and take for granted today could have been a whole lot different. In winning the court case, the Howell court case, Ginsberg perhaps paved the way for a social and cultural revolution, a revolution, to my mind, that probably changed the world. Well, it may have been the beatniks that started this cultural revolution, but it took another decade and another generation to really bring it to the world stage. That generation was the hippies, and here in the Haight-Ashbury area of San Francisco is where it all began. The legacy of the hippies' principles of free speech, free love and free everything else is still all to behold. The hippies are still here to this day, and Pam Brennan was one of the original hippies to peddle this counterculture that terrified America in the 60s. I mean, in those days you had Janis Joplin living here, Grateful Dead, Mamas and the Papas. It must have been a really exciting time, but at the same time perhaps quite a scary time.
Exactly, because you never do know. I mean, it was very, as free and open as it was, and you'd meet maybe 15, 20 new people every day. And you never really asked even their names, but you met them and knew them, communed with them, shared a meal with them. So as open as it was also the most paranoid period of time, because you never really knew who you were taking up with, and not everybody could handle that openness so readily. So we came up with the theory that just assume, whenever you're with a group of 3 or more, just assume that one is a narc, a CIA agent, or an FBI agent, and it made it ever so much easier to relax and get along with who you were with, if you just operated under that assumption.
To this day, you're coming to San Francisco, surely the Haight-Ashbury area is really where you should take a look, isn't it?
Absolutely, not to be missed. Today, there's a lot of boutiques and cafes and bookstores, and used clothing stores are the rage. It's certainly suffered a lot of what we know as gentrification. The gentry from the burbs are coming back in because it's cool. But I still think it has preserved a really conscious bit of enlightenment. I mean, I think people here, a lot of them are a little more enlightened and genuinely do want to see drastic progressive social change.
The Haight-Ashbury area is a treat not to be missed, with its just-got-out-of-bed, laid-back vibe. The landmarks like the Grateful Dead's home are still standing, and murals depicting the principles of the hippie movement adorn the houses. Issa, another hippie friend of Pam's, still lives the hippie life. To me, that kind of sums it up, really. There's a lot of trees, you know.
Right.
There's a lot of free love and free spirit and all that kind of free music.
It's very indicative of the 60s and the 70s, and even before that, because in the corner you have Martin Luther King, you have John F. Kennedy. Here you have a guru with people dancing around him in the tree. You have the person playing guitar, the person doing Tai Chi.
Do you think the hippie movement has succeeded or not?
You know what I think? I think not really. Is it over? No. There's many of us still here, and we're still working towards the movement to make the world a better place.
Invigorated now by the history of this quest for freedom that's all pervading down this coastline, I can't wait to get out of San Francisco and start my journey of discovery. As the golden embers of early evening light up the road ahead, I get my first glimpse of the stunning coastline that makes this road so special. The hustle and bustle of the city fades from the memory, and I'm beginning to leave the stress of urban life behind. That was wonderful. Now for me, freedom is all about motorcycling, but for a lot of people around here, the ultimate freedom is all about surfing. This is Half Moon Bay, about 40 miles out of San Francisco, and this particular break is infamous. It's called Mavericks, and it's one of the few places in the world that surfers like Grant can immerse themselves in their passion, a passion for big wave surfing. That's surfing waves of some 40 foot high. Now you do big wave surfing, which is lunacy in my view.
When you get to the big wave surfers, I think everybody's obsessed. You know, it's you take them to an extreme. Like, you know, if you're riding your motorcycle the whole length of the state, you know, most people maybe go out for an afternoon ride, but they're not going to do that. Most surfers aren't going to ride a 40-foot wave, but for the guys that do, it's an obsession and a passion and, you know, an all-consuming activity. So it's special. On the best day, this probably is the best place in the world. And on a lot of days, it's definitely the best place in the world, because most of the time other breaks don't provide 40-foot surf. So if you're surfing good 40-foot waves, chances are you're the only guy doing that. I think people overestimate the risk because of the scale and forget that it's water. If you're actually good at it and are familiar with what you're attempting, it's not as risky as it would appear. But of course, if I threw somebody out there who doesn't know what they're doing, drown in 5 minutes.
Even without the surf today, it's just a very special place to be here, isn't it?
Yeah, that's one of the nicest things is this coastline, and you know, anybody that comes here, even in the summer when the waves are small, you can see what a great place it is. You can feel the interaction of, like, you know, primal geology and this amazing ocean, and it's just a cool place. You know, Route 1 is just, you know, I love it.
Every type of surfing is a way of life all the way down this coast. Around every corner the coastline beckons the lunatic like Grant or the nervous novice to get out into the surf and catch a wave. Wild horses wouldn't drag me into the water, but that's what this unbelievable coastline is all about, a freedom of choice to indulge your passion. Well, as I get back on the road, the sun is shining on me aboard my lavish and lurid piece of American iron, which I have to say I'm falling madly in love with as I head down towards Santa Cruz. Having done the serious historical sightseeing, I feel free to lap up this scenery and free to be myself. What a wonderful feeling that is. It may be November, but who would ever think it? The evening's drawing in, but Santa Cruz is only a few miles down the road. Well, we've made it to Santa Cruz. Actually, I've just got to say, when you're riding, I mean, it's November, as we've said, and it can get really cold. But it's really funny, each sort of bay you go into, or each valley you go into, is sort of like a warm blanket. And then when you rise up over the hills on the road, it gets really cold. What a fantastic time. You have to do it. So after a quick wash and brush up, it's time to explore the nightlife of this quaint little town, and I've been told of a jumping little joint just down on the harbour. Well, the first day's ride has been absolutely amazing. We've made it to Santa Cruz for the evening, and the place to be in Santa Cruz is here at the Crow's Nest. The Crow's Nest is famous in these parts for good food and a great welcome, and my first impressions are exactly that, but my exuberance is quelled slightly by the PR of the restaurant insisting that I wax lyrical about the huge range of food available. Do you know what? I really hate doing these kind of things. It's all a setup, and at the end of the day, this place is okay. It does quite nice food. It's got a good ambience, there's some quite nice, good-looking girls around. But we got here a bit late, so it's dark, so I can't really see anything. Consequently, there's no sea views to be had or ogling of lavish yachts, so time to retire to my digs and eagerly await what Santa Cruz has to offer in the morning. As I'm awoken by the sunrise over Santa Cruz, I start to become aware of my rather restless night spent here in this time warp hotel owned by Mr. and Mrs. Darling, with everything, including its plumbing, firmly ensconced in the 1900s. I thought I'd just show you where we stayed last night. This is the Darling house, owned by a couple of Darlings. It's all been restored to how it was in 1910. And this is the best room they've got with incredible views, but the others don't actually have ensuite bathrooms, and the plumbing is kind of 1910, and I didn't really have any hot water, which tiddled me off a bit. So much so, without an ensuite bathroom, I tiddled in the sink. Feeling a little bit guilty of my nocturnal antics, it's time to head off into town and soak up the early morning atmosphere. It's really weird when you come into a town at night there you've never been before, and you really don't know where you are or what's going on here. And then it's 8 o'clock in the morning, you come out here and it is absolutely divine. In the warmth of the morning sun, Santa Cruz delights. People are already chilling out on the beach, and the whole place is dwarfed by the oldest amusement park on the west coast. It's a town that immediately pervades its laid-back yet alternative lifestyle, and like many retreats along this coast, it has its very own place in history. Well, this area of Santa Cruz doesn't look much just by the old amusement park, but actually it was the birthplace of surfing on the mainland of America. And that was due to these 3 Hawaiian princes who turned up here and were sent to school here in the 1890s. And they were so homesick that they made a couple of primitive boards and went out and surfed just at the mouth of the estuary here. And it's right here where surfing actually began on the mainland of America. You know, I've just found a little passage here in my little guidebook about what Santa Cruz is all about. As always, we can't spend much time here, so this really sums it up perhaps. And it says here, ideally situated at the north end of Monterey Bay, Santa Cruz has marched on to its own beat since long before the Beat generation. In the 1970s, a local newspaper published a do-it-yourself artificial insemination guide for the large local lesbian community. It's still cool to be a hippie here, even if you scratch some and find a slumming Silicon Valley millionaire underneath. And that really encapsulates still to this day what Santa Cruz is all about. But with time against us, it's time to leave this hotbed of radicalism behind. So we're heading out probably about 30 miles down Highway 1 towards Carmel. And what a beautiful day to do it on. Can't believe it's November. Back in England it'll be pouring with rain. And I'm sitting on this thing. It's got to be about 70 degrees and it's only about 10 a.m. Carmel beckons, and I do really feel that I'm starring in my very own road movie, only being disturbed briefly to let the firm arm of the law go on its way. If you're at all worried about handling a motorcycle in America, for the moment, fear not. The drivers are generally friendly and aware, and most importantly, there's not too many of them, and the road is plenty big enough to make the odd mistake. This although will change as we head towards Los Angeles, a place where every car seems to want to kill you. As I contemplate whether my road movie will be a love story or a tragedy, I arrive in Carmel, surely the definitive definition of chocolate box America. The little town of Carmel is surely a one-off. Its mayor is Clint Eastwood, and its streets and boutiques are obsessively manicured to retain its history and bijou appeal. Franchise businesses are totally banned here, and you get the feeling that if Starbucks or Costa Coffee opened up, there would be all-out civil war. One of the best restaurants in town is this Italian called Casanova's, owned by Walter Juris and his family, serving unmolested Italian fare and a genuinely heartfelt welcome in equal measures. You really are obsessed perhaps about upholding, history and that. I mean, there are no street names.
We have street names but no addresses. There are no numbers. So it says, well, we live on the northwest corner of 12th and Casanova. And it's our house with a pink fence. There are no street lights and there's no signals in town. So you're kind of in the dark, and the idea is to keep it a village. You cannot build a house without putting wood around the trees to protect it from potential backhoe running into the tree, because you may kill the tree. And we're not killing trees here. You may build a home, but you're not moving a tree for the convenience of the architecture.
Well, in keeping with their passion here in Carmel to stave off modernity, there is no mail service here. So everybody in the town has to come down and get their mail from these little boxes. This way of life may seem absurd to you and me, but you have to hand it to the wealthy residents that they've succeeded in preventing the tide of Western capitalism infiltrating their sacred village, even though paradoxically they've all made their money from it to be able to live here. Isn't this the most picturesque little petrol station you've ever seen? Well, we're leaving Carmel and heading up to Big Sur. I need to get some petrol. Now, the trouble with this bike, if there is one so far, is that it does about 100 miles to the tank. So consequently, I have to monitor it all the time, because the reserve also is only about 15 miles. So I've got to fill up regular-like. As I head out of Carmel, soaking up the coastal views, the fading sun is making life pretty cold, so on with the jacket. The start of Big Sur is only about 25 miles down the one from Carmel, but what a ride it is. The road twists from headland to headland, revealing vistas that take your breath away. I've even got time to check out Bixby Bridge, one of the world's highest single-span bridges. As I lose the light completely, my hostelry for the night looks rather welcoming. Oh wow, that was amazing. 25 miles of most unbelievable coastal ride in magic hour. Life can't get better than that. Well, we're here at Big Sur, which is really more of a statement than a place. As daylight breaks over the Big Sur Lodge, situated right in the middle of a redwood forest, the statement of individuality and non-conformity that this area is famed for is furthest from my thoughts. Well, it's a lovely morning here at the Big Sur Lodge, but I'm in a grump, and I don't know why. The only thing that sort of cheers me up is looking at that bike. So we stayed here last night in these lodges. Now, I'll tell you why I'm grumpy. It's because we went down for breakfast. And very unusual for America, but the service was just rubbish. But it is actually all very spacious and all very quaint and all very sort of rustic and pine. The one thing I do love about places like this is a little coffee percolator. And out here is your terrace. Now, as terraces go, I wouldn't say the view's that good. But these little lodges are good just for one night, I suppose. And it costs 75 quid. Now I just need to check the bike over just a little bit to see if there are any problems. That's what they told me to do. Every morning, just check it over as it's new. There's only one problem for me, being told to check things out. I don't know what to check. I think I'll just go and have another coffee. Well, I guess I'll hit the coffee percolator one more time, cheer up, tog up, and leave my chintzy little wooden cabin behind. Well, I can't wait to get back onto Highway 1 and leave the Big Sur Lodge. Something probably to be avoided unless you're into the smell of pine resin and lippy waiters. As I settle down into the ride and admire the redwood forest all around me, I realise to my horror that the dreaded fog has rolled in from the sea to obscure both the sun, the warmth, and any glimmer of an end to my bad mood. This doesn't bode well for my next stop, one of the most famous coastal culinary delights in Big Sur. On arrival, it's not gone well at all. Oh dear. Well, I was going to show you one of the most famous restaurants in Big Sur, which is here, Nepenthe. It has probably some of the greatest views on this coastline, apart from this morning, where the fog's come in, so you can't actually see anything. So my grump continues, eh? Just as I give up on what could have been a delightful little hostelry, in the car park I spy a few fellow bikers to hopefully brighten my mood. Round here, okay, they say that Big Sur's really not a city, if you see what I mean, or a town, but it's a state of mind.
Yeah, it's a tough place, yeah.
How does that, how do you describe
Well, I don't know,
that?
Henry Miller lives right around the corner, you know, so, I mean, they wouldn't even let us read his books, you know, until the 50s.
Yeah.
Esalen to Gorda,
Yeah.
there's no electricity.
This is California,
Yeah,
isn't it?
yeah, but this is a special place, you know. You got to be half hippie and tough to live in Big Sur, you know.
Do you think bikes is what it's about as regards a statement of freedom?
Well, it is for me.
Is it?
My girlfriend just died. I didn't know what to do with myself.
God.
And a lady down the street says, well, buy a motorcycle. I said, shit, I'm going to be 70 years old, man. A motorcycle? And the minute I bought this thing, threw my leg over it, this is the last thing Sonny made, and she's with me again, you know? So,
Really, is that
yeah,
so?
it's just changed my whole world.
With Jim's infectious positivity and a go on his mate's absurd Harley-Davidson trike round the car park, life's looking up. Well, that little chat there with Jim and his friends has cheered me up somewhat. I've got to say, if you want an endorsement about what motorcycling does to the soul, you know, he's lost his girlfriend, he's 70 years old, and now he's turned to motorcycling, which has helped him get over it. Well, that's really a true endorsement of it all. You wouldn't get that with a little hatchback, would you? Anyway, we're going to head off, try and find some sun, and get on our way down towards St. Louis Obispo. Do you know, on this trip, got Hamish with me, the sound man. Doesn't say a word. I've been trying to get him to say anything, and you're lucky if you get a little grunt out of him. Right, look at him, he's hiding behind the camera now. We've asked him to do an American accent, or try and tell a joke a day. That would be helpful. Nothing. Not even a dicky bird.
It's not my job.
I think I'm just going to have to accept that the fog might be here for a while, but it doesn't altogether obscure some of the stunning scenery. As I ride on, it's getting even colder, however, but the cold's a great excuse to pull in, fill up, and as always with me, pop in for a bite to eat.
Don't get me wrong, okay, that ride was fantastic. Was it? No, it was freezing cold, it was foggy. Wasn't really fantastic at all. You only just get away from these cliffs, which is probably pretty stupid seeing we're doing a coastal ride. Then it's going to warm up a bit. You can do your American accent now, or not?
Hello, Stephen.
Quite incredible. Sounded a bit like Stephen Hawkins rather than anything else.
So body and bike refueled, it's time to get back in the saddle. With every twist and turn, this route has a habit of revealing the odd surprise.
I just saw these guys from the road. Absolutely amazing. These are elephant seals, and they come ashore here to sort of breed and molt, and as far as I can make out, sleep. Anyway, always onward.
We're heading down the coast some 60 miles towards San Luis Obispo, but before we get to St. Louis, I'm in search of one of the weirdest national monuments in all of the Americas. This is Nitwit Ridge in the village of Cambria, very close to the world-famous Hearst Castle. And it's a house built by one Harold Beale, or Captain Nitwit as he was known, purely out of junk. Strangely, it shares the eccentricity of Hearst Castle, only in that William Hearst scoured the world for a mismatch of multi-million-pound artefacts, while Captain Nitwit scoured the local rubbish dump.
Mike, this has to be the craziest national landmark I think I've ever seen.
Yeah, one of the craziest on the Central Coast, and especially since it's so close to Hearst Castle, you know. So this guy just collected junk with no money, and I guess Hearst had all the money, and he collected artifacts from around the world.
Yeah.
But they both collected discards in one way or another.
He was a salvager anyway, was he, or not?
Well, he came here, he was just a construction worker. He came here in 28, and then he became a trash man for about 30 years, a few years after he came here.
It's crazy. I mean, it's built with just everything that he found, you know.
Well, yeah, you know, he would use like car rims for the columns inside the rock columns. He'd use car rims for support. He'd use beer cans for support. He'd use whatever he could get a hold of. The only thing he did say he paid for was the concrete.
Well, I've got to say this place is mad. I mean, look, we're sitting on two lavatories here having a chat. You know, what was this space? Was this actually his outside loo, or was this a place he could just hang out?
No, this was he has a couple of toilets. He had an indoor toilet, but this was his two-seated outhouse. He said with his and her toilet, so he could sit here and have conversations with people.
Nitwit Ridge is a must-see because it surely embodies the eccentricity of this part of California. Perhaps Captain Nitwit was one of the first misunderstood eco-house builders, but in 1928 he was perceived purely as a loony. Funny how things change. As night begins to fall, it's only a short ride to St. Louis and to one of the most extraordinary highway motels in the world.
Well, it didn't get any warmer. But anyway, we're here at one of the most eccentric and kitschest hotels on Highway 1. And it's the Madonna Inn.
But as the traffic rolls on by, after a day like today, any place is great to get my head down. The Madonna Inn and its pinky orange neon lit facade will have to wait till tomorrow. Not only does the morning bring sunshine, it also reveals a surreal world. I feel as though I've just woken up in a Disney cartoon.
Over the last 15 years, I've been lucky enough to be reviewing all kinds of hotels, etc. around the world. And up till now, there's only been one really that's blown my mind, which was a place called the Phantom Forest in South Africa. But that was until now.
The Madonna Inn has to be one of the coolest, kitschest and weirdest motels. It was built not by the pop star or the Virgin Mary, but by Mr. and Mrs. Madonna, who wanted to create a home from home on the road in the 50s. God knows what their home looked like. It all started with just 12 themed rooms, but now has grown to 109, all every bit as different as each other. My room, for example, is the Madonna suite, with a bathroom as a cave and the living area all wrapped up in red velvet. The restaurants are just as mad, and as you walk around the grounds, you can't help but appreciate this roadside wonder. I think the bike fits in rather well here, both very kitsch. Actually, it's strange, a lot of people may think that the Madonna Inn is tacky, but I think it's kind of original kitsch that everyone else is trying to emulate that becomes tacky. Well, look, if you think this is outrageous, our next port of call, about 50 miles down 101, is a little village called Solvang. For this next part of the journey down to Solvang, Highway 1 turns into the 101, a two-lane interstate that begins to herald the freneticism of the road ahead down to LA. I'm briefly totally demoralised as I hit fog yet again, but as I ride my mood swing, the sun, to my utter joy, reappears. It's bright but chilly, and after about an hour in the saddle, I arrive in the very strange town of Solvang in reflective mood. It's funny, you know, riding a motorbike is just riding a load of emotions, and it is a journey that you've just got to be in the now, you know. You've got to, you know, just think, hey, it's going to be all right. And just as we went round the corner after about 30 miles, I saw the sunshine. So we've made it to Solvang. I'm cold, but very excited. Solvang is a replica of a Danish village, complete with windmills, saccharine sweet gift shops, and a passion for preservation, even moving the roads rather than the trees. It was founded by a couple of Danish farmers in 1911, who obviously gave the word homesick a whole new meaning. Pious travel writers would tell you to give this place a wide berth, but I love it, mainly for its Danish pastries, and Jeff's restaurant sells thousands of them every week.
Some people say that Solvang is more Danish than Denmark, because Denmark got really crazy for a while and they went super modern. We kept the town with the architecture, so when people come here they actually think they're in Europe. What amazes me is that Danes come here and eat Danish food, where when I go to a foreign country I like to try different things. When you come to the valley, you're more into bakeries, food, and wine. Wine's gotten so big. People come, they drink, they eat, and there's shops. So there's something for everybody.
As I head out of Solvang, I can hardly steer the bike due to an excess of pastry. But as there's no Highway 1 here, I'm looking for what I'm told is a sublime ride on the 154 down to Santa Barbara, and within minutes I'm in heaven. Life is good, and the road even better. The 154 is wide and predictable, with few cars and stunning views. Santa Barbara, though, appears all too quickly. Well, we just got to Santa Barbara. That was a great ride on the 154. Slight detour, obviously, off Highway 1. But there's no Highway 1 here, it's just the 101 interstate. So to take a detour from Solvang down here to Santa Barbara is fantastic. Now, the joy of this kind of trip, it's a little bit laissez-faire. Hamishu, as you know, doesn't say much. Gone in to see if there's any vacancies here at this little motel, Marina Beach or something. We can get our heads down and then explore Santa Barbara tomorrow. But before I get my head down, I might hit the town for a quick drink. It's only going to be a quick drink because I hate sports bars. He even looks bored peeling a peanut, doesn't he? Well, as sports bars go, I guess this isn't too bad at all. This is Madison's on State Street, and State Street is really the main drag, the main sort of centre of the Mediterranean feel. But you may get some football plaguing you in the background, but you do get free peanuts and a small Diet Coke. Either way, after another Coca-Cola and a bit of Mexican, it's time for bed. Next morning, I slowly become aware of my surroundings. Well, the bad news is the fog is back, but hopefully only briefly, so there's nothing for it but to embark on a brisk seaside constitutional, admiring the wildlife and the myriads of boats, and generally freshen up a bit.
Excuse me. I'm beginning to wake up slowly after my wander around the harbour wall. It is rather beautiful, and the sun is beginning to come and shine over Santa Barbara. Now, all the guidebooks say that you can do Santa Barbara in half a day, and they're probably right. But one other thing about the place is that it is the weekend mecca for the Los Angeles rich and also famous. And even Ronald Reagan lived here.
As well as its fair share of celebrities, Santa Barbara is a thriving community with wonderful shops and boutiques. Its whitewashed buildings with terracotta tiled roofs gives it the reputation as the Californian Riviera. Along Santa Barbara's quiet beachfront road, I can settle into the bike before the LA onslaught. The sun's out and relatively warm as the rows of palm trees hypnotically flash by, but it's not long before we're out on the 101, facing the start of our approach to LA. I feel a little insecure after spending the last 10 days in some of the remotest parts of California, to be soon confronted with one of the busiest car cultures in the world. LA is a place where motorcyclists are often expendable, and from the safety of millions of SUVs, the population seems to derive pleasure from totally ignoring your very existence. With that in mind, I'm trying to avoid going into LA on the 101, so I'm hugging the coast through Malibu, which seems a result. Soon the Pacific Coast Highway is inevitable, but I forget my paranoia and actually quite enjoy the run into LA. As night falls, I ditch the bike and make a beeline for one of my favourite haunts.
Well, we've made it into Los Angeles. Now, Los Angeles is a massive place, and one thing when you first come here is you think, well, where's the centre? Well, the bottom line is with Los Angeles is the centre is where you want it to be, which is normally where you are. And my favourite little bit of LA that I'm sort of gravitated to or drawn to is here, just on Sunset and Sunset Plaza, and this great little Italian restaurant called Cafe Med. And it's just a perfect place after a long ride to sit back and watch the world go by.
And what a world it is. Fast cars and crazy dog-loving bikers cruise past as I sup my soup. You immediately feel that you are now part of one of the most materialistic and aspirational cities on earth. A city where image is everything and spiritual fulfillment comes in the form of a Ferrari. As morning comes to the streets of LA, paved with designer shops and candelabras, I'm up early to soak up this city of dreams.
Well, it's rather a cold and misty early morning here on Rodeo Drive. Now, it's impossible to show you the whole of Los Angeles in a couple of minutes, but I'm going to try and give you a personal insight into this crazy city.
So to start with, I thought I'd hook up with my old buddy Alan, a movie producer with credits like Donnie Brasco. If there's one man who knows the LA movie culture, it's him.
The interesting thing is, it's an industry city. It's an interesting town, an industry town. And so it's driven by the film and entertainment business, and it's very, on the one end, corporate, and the other end is very blue collar, you know, because a lot of production goes on here. And on the surface, it might look glamorous and it might look like it's intriguing and fun, but the truth of the matter is a lot of hard work.
Well, I called you last night to just make sure you're still in the office at 9:30 having a salad. I mean, is that the work ethic here?
Yeah, it is. It is. It's, you know, I mean, I don't know what, it's 9:30 now, and, you know, we've already been up, or the industry's been up, you know, since at least 5:36, getting on with the business.
What's the real realities of LA and fame?
A lot of it is just luck, being at the right place at the right time. I mean, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Talent helps. Talent helps, but it's not essential. It's the entertainment business. It's not the talent business. And people want to be entertained, and you don't necessarily have to have an extraordinary talent to entertain people. Anybody can make it. Anybody can be discovered. Anybody can have the next hot script that can sell for $1 million.
It seems to me that it's all about money here. It's all about how you look, it's all about the car you drive. And emotionally, is the substance in friendships, relationships, marriage? You know, or is it just they change their wives just as they change their car when the, you know, lease is up?
Pretty much.
Ironically, this superficial bubblegum reality of what LA is all about is why it attracts millions of wannabes every year to find fame, fortune and therapy. And that's why I love this place. As a voyeur rather than a participant, this is a city that rocks to the beat of hope and opportunity, where careers can be made or lost before brunch, and celebritydom is as transient as your skinny latte. If, on the other hand, you're lucky enough to make it big, you might want to stay at one of the most luxurious hotels a lot of money can buy.
Now, I'm only going to show you one hotel here in Los Angeles, and this is my favourite. It's the Bel Air, and to me, it's paradise.
The Bel Air is not only one of the most expensive, but also one of the most famous hotels in LA. The likes of Russell Crowe even have their very own suite here. It's a place where the clamouring of the wannabes cruising Sunset Boulevard is inaudible. It's been created as an oasis that offers total opulence and a very five-star personal service to the rich and very famous. If you're staying at the Bel Air, you're living the dream.
Now you can see why the Bel Air is such a favourite with all the celebrities that come here and film stars, because you get a suite like this. And also, obviously, you get these beautiful surroundings and 12-acre plot of security mainly. It's very difficult for the paparazzi to get in here. This suite is typical, and it's yours for $3,000 a night.
Well, I'm leaving the tranquility of the Bel Air, hooking up with my mate Lance, a Harley-riding rocker who's one of the few bikers in LA who uses his custom Harley as a daily ride. He, like me, when time allows, gravitates to one of the coolest bike dealers in LA, Thunder Road. This chop shop on Santa Monica Boulevard has been building some of LA's finest customs for over 20 years, and it's a great place to get an insight on riding in LA.
The thing I don't understand, okay, when I've been riding here before, okay, the Japanese bikes, or as they call them, rice burners,
rockets, yeah.
A very different scene to the American riding, you know, Harley riding bikers, but it seems to they kind of merge now. Is that right?
Yeah, well, I think what happens around this region is there's only a few specific really great places to ride. There's about three. There's the PCH, there's Angeles National Crest, and there's the Mulholland Highway.
I mean, what's it like riding a bike in LA?
They're all multi-tab. They're on the phone with one hand. Girls are doing their makeup with the other, you know, and trying to drive with their, you know, you have to definitely be on your guard at all
the
times.
time.
Yeah, like hyper alert.
Yeah.
People ask me, you know, I want to learn to ride a motorcycle. I'm always like, do not learn to ride in LA.
As Lance and I leave Thunder Road, the traffic is starting to build to its crescendo of the evening rush hour. With Lance on his way home and night falling, I'm left to navigate the gridlock that is Sunset Boulevard. While LA reveals the true guilt of its car culture, even petrol heads like me contemplate that the war is lost on global warming. The next morning brings another cold and chilly start. It's time to head out of LA and ride the final 60 miles or so south on Highway 1 down to Journey's End in Laguna Beach. The route takes me out of LA through the suburbs that the coiffeur chat show host would never tell you about. You can always tell the poor neighbourhoods in LA because they can't afford to bury their power cables. Another eyesore on this bleak and lonely thoroughfare. The resorts of Huntington and Newport Beach feel more like November in Blackpool rather than California. But eventually we arrive in Laguna.
Well, we finally made it after about 4 hours stuck in traffic. I wouldn't have got here any quicker if I wasn't following the camera track. It's quite cold, but it looks a nice place when it's sunny.
Laguna Beach would, I'm sure, be even more divine if the sun was out. It's a family resort with glorious white beaches viewed by the weekend LA rich from their hilltop villas. It's also famed for its plethora of art galleries and quaint boutiques, and there's a host of hotels and condos to choose from.
This place is cool. This is called Vacation Village or something like that. It's a whole load of apartments. It's right on the beach here. Now, is Laguna Beach a place to raise hell on a motorcycle? Definitely not. And would I ride for 5 hours in the cold and in the traffic from Los Angeles, well, probably not. But it is an amazing place for children. So consequently, if you've got your SUV and you're coming down here with all your kids and your wife and your grandmother, then it is a perfect destination.
As I take a short evening walk in the gloom to get some well-earned sea air, it's time to reflect on the trials and tribulations of riding Highway 1.
Well, is riding Highway 1 one of the greatest motorcycle rides in the world? Well, you know what? I think it is, but not actually for the riding itself. It's all about taking 1 or 2 weeks riding the American dream.
Highway 1 delivers because in just 7 days you can ride the all-out expression of freedom that this 650 miles of road embodies. It's a freedom that shocked but now is craved for the world over, an aspiration to express yourself as an individual that has to be experienced firsthand. Free speech was born, continually fought for and fervently upheld here. It's also an unbelievable diversity of landscape, riding, culture, climate and all-out fun. And what also makes it so appealing are the people. California is the land of the solution rather than the problem, the land of opportunity, the opportunity to ultimately have a great time.
And so to me, riding Highway 1 really encapsulates what California is all about.